If you've never played any of the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy, I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that you've been robbed of one of the most original, challenging, and all-around best 3D platformers of all time. The good news is that it's not too late to meet Sony's original mascot with the Crash Bandicoot N-Sane Trilogy, a complete overhaul of the original 3 Crash Bandicoot games. Before I get into what's new with this remake, let's talk Crash. In 1996, Crash Bandicoot was released on the PlayStation 1. Crash was kind of like Sonic the Hedgehog. You've got this titular and cool woodland creature that's been stylized, put into a world to support his movements and abilities, and sent off to clear levels and face off with a mad scientist. In fact, since the player would often be moving Crash away from a fixed camera, when Crash was in its early stages of development, it was codenamed Sonic's Ass Game. I swear that's real. I can't make up this shit. At any rate, Crash Bandicoot is a 3D platformer that's packed with obstacles to maneuver and jump around, enemies to spin attack or jump on, and various boxes to smash, which can give Crash a shield, an extra life, credits to access a bonus stage, or Wumpa Fruit, where collecting 100 gives Crash another way to rack up those extra lives. Throw Crash in a unique tribal environment, give him some memorable enemies and bosses to topple, hidden gems to collect, throw in some tight controls and tough yet fair level design, and you've got a damn good game that'll stand the test of time. With Crash Bandicoot's smashing success, he became a franchise, and just a year later, we got Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. And only a year after that, we got Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Though, admittedly, Crash was beginning to lose steam by this point. From 96 to 2010, Crash had games and spin-offs left and right. Some great, some not so great, but few struck a chord with the audience, quite like the original PlayStation 1 trilogy. But Crash is back, baby, and Vicarious Visions did an amazing job with the gyroscopic orange marsupial. Crash looks and sounds better than ever before. And Crash looked pretty damn good on the PlayStation 1 in the first place. Every single sound and asset was completely remade or re-recorded, and they took very few liberties to do their own thing. This remake truly feels like a love letter from Crash fans to Crash fans. They didn't bother trying to make Crash control tighter or jump higher or any nonsense like that, but instead kept the original feel and challenge that was present in the first place. What Vicarious Visions did change, however, only resulted in some much needed quality of life improvements for the player. Firstly, in Crash, you used to be able to save your game only if you were able to complete a bonus level. If you got a game over, you were forced to continue from your last completed bonus level, which could be pretty far back. And as the bonus levels get fairly challenging as the game progresses, and with only one shot at them per level, failing a bonus stage could be a pretty big disappointment, and a pretty big setback. Thankfully, you may now save after any level. Autosave is now a thing, and bonus levels may be attempted indefinitely, though you won't get to keep any of the goodies you find in these bonus stages unless you can actually finish it. Hidden in the 3 Crash games were also extra gems you could find in each level, which helps to add to the replay value, as completing the games can be done pretty quickly if you're good at them. In the original Crash, simply breaking all the boxes, or doing so without dying would reward you with a gem. But in Crash 2 and so on, they began to get kind of tricky and threw in some extra challenges, like clearing half the level without dying before taking on a challenging optional route, or hiding them behind fake walls. Vicarious Visions added in hints on the loading screens between levels, to help you find these sometimes cryptic gems, while still retaining the excitement of discovering them yourself. Crash Bandicoot 3 added time trials, where completing stages quick enough would reward you with an Ankh, and some boxes would get changed to provide you with precious extra seconds. Vicarious Visions took the liberty of adding in this fun little challenge at the first and second games as well, maxing out the replay value without watering down the Crash formula. Though Crash's book-smart sister Coco was introduced in Crash 2, Crash 3 made Coco a playable character for certain levels, so Vicarious went the extra mile and added her as a playable character in nearly every stage in all 3 games. And they did it right. Playing as either Crash or Coco has no functional difference in the game, just some new animations for standing idle or clearing stages. It's a completely unnecessary yet welcome change to add some girl power into the mix. Now let me talk about the games by themselves. Crash Bandicoot 1 is like dating a beautiful, perfect woman, but if you forget to hold the door open for her, she grips you by the balls. Whoa! What I mean to say is that Crash 1 is tough and demanding, especially late game, as your jumps and timing must become incredibly precise, and one false move will send you to your death. The difficulty spike is all over the place, with some early to mid stages being even tougher than the last few. Though Crash 1 can be incredibly tough at times, it never really feels too unfair, though there is a slight clunkiness to certain levels. Crash 1 is also super generous with extra lives, but won't hesitate to take them away either. I had a stockpile of 60 guys before I got to this piece of shit level, and lost over 40 of them. Despite Crash's difficulty, Crash 1 is still a fantastic game. Crash 2 is where Crash really comes into his own. The controls and geography of levels just seems a tad tighter, and the added level select hub makes it easy to see which collectibles you found at a glance, and lets you tackle levels in each hub in any order. This is nice because if there's a stage that's kicking your ass, you can skip it and complete other ones before coming back to it. It also feels like this is the pinnacle of Crash, as the difficulty is a bit more forgiving, yet still challenging, and manages to add a bunch of cool and quirky mechanics, like wire mesh you can climb on, a slide ability, and the ever-important slide jump, belly flop, and an area you can burrow into to avoid certain enemies, and much, much more. Though Crash 2 is a bit easier, it's also a bit more stingy with the lives. Even though I died many more times in the first game, I got more game overs in Crash 2. At any rate, Crash 2 is the tits. Highly recommend. Crash 3 tried too hard to add new things, and results in a sort of too many cooks spoil the broth experience. That's not to say Crash 3 is bad by any means, it's still a great game and a ton of fun, but it simply doesn't match up to the other two. Crash 3 has way too many gimmicky levels, like an underwater stage that's annoying to control, and so many vehicle stages. In fact, 16 of the 25 stages in Crash 3 are gimmicky or vehicle stages, which is just way too much. Though there are some cool ideas here, like the airplane levels are pretty cool, some of them felt like a chore, and I really just wanted to get back to the platforming stages. Also added here are permanent power-ups for Crash once you defeat bosses, like a double jump, a spin that you can glide with, or a bazooka that shoots Wumpa Fruit. On paper this sounds pretty cool, but it really just kinda muddies up the gameplay and takes a good deal of the challenge out of it. I mean, why bother with enemies if you can just blast them from afar? As a result, Crash 3 ends up being the easiest of the three. That said, I like the direction that Crash 3 went with the story, but that's not exactly why you're playing Crash. Regardless, these three games are all fantastic, and it's awesome that Activision and Vicarious Visions gave us some much needed nostalgia while providing us with some important improvements. Not only that, but it's great that Crash Bandicoot gets a chance to be introduced to a new generation of gamers that may have missed out on it. At only $40, you can't go wrong with the N-Sane Trilogy, and maybe, just maybe, if it does well enough, we'll be able to see a Crash Team Racing, Crash Bash, or Spyro remake. Fingers crossed. The only real gripe I can really think of with this remake is that the loading screens are kind of long, but really that's a minor complaint within a mountain of a good game. Whether it's your first go with this crazy orange fidget spinner, or a return to times past, Crash Bandicoot, the N-Sane Trilogy, is definitely a game you should be playing. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more Cyberphile content, and if you liked this video, show me with that little thumbs up button. If you liked this video, you might like one of my other videos. You can click right on the boxes to jump to them. Cyberphile, offline.